Bravo, Sony! You finally did it. The Sony A7s III is finally on the wild. Now we can finally react to this camera. Did they exceed expectations? Is this camera any good? Was it worth the wait? Let's talk about it. So Sony finally launched the Sony A7s III. After about 5 years since the A7s II, finally we get this camera. Overall, it seems to be a pretty decent camera, but I don't think they exceeded expectations like they wanted, and I'll tell you why. So, first of all, they announced this camera on the 28th, so I'm coming out a little bit later than usual. Unfortunately, I had some things to do and some events and stuff, so I couldn't come out with this video earlier. Sorry about that. But I'm just gonna be talking about this in this video about my reaction and the overall impressions of this camera from reviews I've seen and stuff. And I'm also gonna be talking about the specs. So Sony announced this camera on the 28th of June, so last month, of July, should I say? So last month. The announcement was really lackluster. It was only a 30-minute live stream. It didn't even have audio at the background. It was just a guy narrating the whole thing, so it was really boring, which is why I decided not to do a live reaction to that, because it was really boring. But this camera, I mean, I've already seen the specs. It's great for video, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't really exceed the expectations in my opinion. I think they should have released this camera much earlier. They should have released this camera back in 2018. I've already seen some rumors about this camera being ready for release in 2018. That's when they should have released it. Back then, they wouldn't have had all the specs, of course, but it would have exceeded expectations back then. But now, I think it's too little too late, because now we have the Canon R5 and R6 doing 4K 120 as well in the R5 and 8K and stuff. So 4K 120 is not really exceeding expectations. We also have Blackmagic and Zcam. Blackmagic, for example, has now announced the new 12K camera, for example. So yeah, I don't think Sony really exceeded expectations, but I have done, or should I say, I have here a page going over the specs. First of all, this camera costs a lot of money here in Portugal. It's 4,200 euros, as you can see here in Color Photo. Publicity, by the way, to Color Photo. But yeah, right here in Portugal it costs 4,200 euros, so that's a lot. In the US it costs about $3,500, so that's a huge price increase. $4,200, 4,200 euros, should I say, for the 12 megapixel camera is really high. So the specs pretty much has a 12 megapixel sensor. Now this is really depressing. I don't know why they didn't went with the new 15 megapixel quad Bayer sensor. They went with the same old tiring 12 megapixel sensor. 12 megapixels in 2020 is really not pushing expectations in my opinion. They should have went once again with the 15 megapixel sensor, which they have now. I believe this sensor has a quad Bayer design, but I think Sony disabled it on purpose to not make this camera a true hybrid camera. So this way they make it only appealing for videographers, not really for photographers. So that really sucks. The R5 and the R6 are better hybrid cameras than the A7s III in my opinion. Then it's got a new processor, the Bion's XR processor. This allows it to have a new menu, because now they have debuted a new menu system. Finally, Sony debuted a new menu system. The new menu system is much better than the old one from what I've seen. They also implemented the full touchscreen implementation, but this new menu is not coming to the older cameras, because apparently the new processor can handle this menu, but the older processors can't handle it. So this menu is only coming out in this camera, and hopefully the future A7 IV and the other cameras. So at least they improved the menu system after so many people complaining about it. Then for the recording options, it can film up to 4K 120, so that's pretty great, and also 10-bit 422 internally. Now this camera, unlike the Canon EOS R5, does not record RAW internally. You have to record it externally, but it does have 16-bit RAW output, so that's pretty great. The 4K 120, you can record for about 1 hour. The Sony A7 you can record for about 1 hour. It won't overheat until 1 hour, so that's pretty great, because the R5 overheats like crazy, so at least they solved that. This camera has an internal passive cooling system, so that's pretty great. It doesn't seem to have much overheating problems. I've seen some people say that this camera overheats once outside in direct sunlight, but if you're filming inside, I don't think it's gonna overheat. At least not as fast as the R5 and the R6 from many reviews I've seen. Next, it's got an ISO range of 80 to 409,600. Now, I believe this has dual gain ISO, because I've seen some people like Jordan Dunn talk about this. It has dual native ISO. I think it has a dual native. I think it has base ISOs of 160, and then it also has a 1600, I believe. So when you get to the 1600, I believe, ISO, it lowers the noise, so that's pretty great. It has dual native ISO, because the rumors said it wouldn't have dual native ISO, but apparently it has dual native ISO, so that's pretty great. It's got the awesome Sony autofocus system. This time it's been improved, so now it offers 759 points of AF, 92% coverage, so that's pretty great. They improved the autofocus in this camera. The A7s II unfortunately didn't have face detection, so that's a pretty huge upgrade over the A7s II. Now you can actually use this camera for the autofocus continuous, so that's pretty great. I don't know if it's better than the Canon R5 and R6 though. I don't know. I've seen some people say it's better, others say that Canon is better. I don't know. When it comes to IAF, I don't know which one is better, but at least the autofocus now is pretty reliable, so that's good. Next, it's got new codecs, so XAVC HS, so it's got X265 codec. That's pretty great, because the file sizes can be smaller for the same quality. But that also means it's gonna be much more demanding on the processor and the PC. So you're gonna have to have a beefier PC to edit the files. When it comes to stabilization, they claim right here they have 5.5 stops of image stabilization. Now, I've already seen some videos with the IBIS on. It doesn't seem to be that much better. So unfortunately, it still is the same lackluster Sony IBIS. Comparing it to Panasonic, Nikon, and Canon, it's not really that great. It's still there's still a lot of shake in the video. Now they also have digital image stabilization as well, so it crops the sensor a little bit to improve the stabilization. But you can still see some jerkiness here and there, so it's not really that great. Unfortunately, they couldn't really improve the IBIS that much. So you're still gonna be advised to use a gimbal with this camera or any other Sony cameras in the future. It's also got dual SD card slots, of course, but interesting, it's got a new CF Express Type A slot. Now this is pretty great, because these cards are faster than the normal UHS 2 slots, but you can also use them with UHS 2. So this camera pretty much can become it has retro compatibility. It can become a 4-card slot pretty much. So you can use UHS 2 in the same slot as the CF Express Type A. So that's pretty great. That's probably the most innovating thing about this camera, is the card system. Now you can use 2 cards in the same slot, or rather, I think you can use both types of cards in the same slot, so that's pretty great. So you can use slower cards, or if you want to record the higher quality, if you need faster speed, you can use the CF Express Type A, so that's pretty great. Next, also the dynamic range, they're claiming 15 stops of dynamic range. I don't know if this is truly accurate. Most of the times it isn't, but I guess it's an improvement over the A7s II and previous cameras. Also, the battery life, it's rated at 610 shots, the battery life, so that's pretty great. It now uses the new Z battery, so of course the battery is to be improved, so that's pretty great. It uses the new Z battery, so now you're gonna get more than double the battery life compared to the A7s II. And those are pretty much the main specs of this camera, I guess. It doesn't have 8K, of course. It has 4K 120, so there's that. No overheating issues whatsoever, at least not until 4K 120. It also has no recording limit, so that's pretty great. So that's gonna make it pretty awesome for people like me who do a lot of concerts and YouTube and stuff, and want a camera that does not stop at the 2959 limit. The Canon R5 and R6 have the dreaded 2959 limit, so that really sucks. That's a huge improvement over the Canons. That's a big huge blow to the Canons. They have the crippling limited recording to not take away sales from the cinema line of cameras. But Sony listened to the customers and they added the limited recordings. But then again, it's pretty much a must already. This is pretty much given because all the new Sony cameras have unlimited recording. So I was already expecting this, but that's pretty good to know. The price, unfortunately, it's for 200 euros here in Portugal, so that's pretty expensive. Yeah, I mean, one thing I don't like about this camera is the screen. So the screen is pretty small. Right here you have the like I was saying, the SD card, so you can have both types in the same slot. But like I was saying, back to the screen now, they have finally added a flip out screen, so that's pretty great. They finally add the flip out screen to the Sony camera. I really hope this comes out in the A7 IV and all the future Sony cameras. But unfortunately, my main complaint about the screen is that it's pretty small. As you can see right here, the screen is pretty small on this camera. It's the same screen as the Sony ZV-1. It's only 3 inch. My Nikon D5500 has a 3.2 inch screen, so it's even bigger than this one. The screen is very small. I've already seen some comparing it with the Canon and the Nikon. It's a pretty small screen, and it just baffles my mind why Sony decided to go this route. I mean, I actually forgot to mention this, but the viewfinder, the electronic viewfinder in this camera is pretty top notch. It's a 9 dot something megapixel EVF, so it's pretty great. It's the biggest resolution EVF on the market right now, but I really don't get the point because this camera is targeted to videographers, and videographers don't really use the EVF, they use the screen. So I don't really get why Sony decided to put it all in the EVF instead of the LCD. They should have really made a better LCD screen because that's what people are going to be using to record videos. But like you can, as you can see here, the screen is very small. The screen is very small. Yes, it flips out, but it's very small compared to the Canon R5 and the R6 and the Nikon Z6 and the Panasonic S1s. So it's a pretty small screen. The resolution is only 2.3, I believe, or something like that. So it's not really that great of a resolution. So the screen, unfortunately, is very bad, which is very dumb. Like I said, this camera is meant to be for video shooters. So why didn't they put it all in the screen? I don't know. They decided to make the EVF better than the LCD screen, so that really sucks. So unfortunately, it has a flip out screen with full touchscreen implementation this time, but it's still very small and it's not really that great of a quality. So yeah, there's that. But overall, guys, I mean, this is a Sony A7s III. Overall, I think it's a pretty great camera overall for video shooters and people who don't really need the 8K and only want the 4K. From some comparison I've seen, the 4K does not seem to be as great as the Canon R5 and the R6 when they record 4K high quality or 8K in the case of the R5. But the low light ISO performance seems to be better than all the other cameras so far on the market, including the Canons and including the S1H as well. But this is to be expected, of course, because it's a 12 megapixel sensor after all. So yeah, it's a 12 megapixel sensor. So that means it's not going to be that great for hybrid shooters and people who want to do photography as well. You won't be able to crop in whatsoever, so that really sucks. The screen design, again, it's really small and it's not really that great of a quality. So I don't really see this camera appealing to many hybrid shooters, but I definitely see it appealing to video shooters, and I think many video shooters will definitely get this camera. Now, compared to the S1H, for example, the S1H has a much better screen design, but the autofocus really sucks. So this camera has much better autofocus compared to the S1H. It's also a little bit cheaper as well. It doesn't have as much video features as the S1H, but then again, the 4K 60, for example, is uncropped, unlike the S1H. So for those people who want to shoot in 4K, I think this will be a better option than the S1H if you can live with the lower quality LCD screen. But overall, I think this is a pretty great camera. Sony did not exceed expectations in my opinion, but they really came out with a really great video camera. So props to Sony for not crippling this camera that much. The only thing I can see here that will need improvement will be the screen, of course, and the sensor. I think they should have went with a quad Bayer sensor to allow for photography as well, better photography features. If they didn't disable the quad Bayer design, they could have made this camera 42 or 48, I'm not really sure, megapixels as well. That would appeal to more video hybrid shooters. But unfortunately, they went with the same old tiring 12 megapixel sensor. So, oh well. Finally, they added the flip out screen, so that's really great. And the new menu system as well as the full touchscreen implementations. Now, I hope the A7 IV follows the footsteps of this camera. So if they can add most of the things of this camera for the A7 IV, I will be really happy. I think the A7 IV is gonna have most of these things. It's only gonna be missing probably the 4K 120. That's gonna be missing, of course, and probably the 4K, the 10-bit 422. I don't know if it's gonna have that internally. But if the A7 IV has most of these things that the A7s III has, I'm gonna be really happy, and Sony's gonna sell a lot of A7 IVs. Now, the A7s III is gonna be appealing mostly to professional video shooters. It doesn't really appeal to me because not only is it very expensive, it also doesn't only has 12 megapixel sensor. It's not really that great for hybrid shooters. But overall, I think this is a pretty great camera. I think it's better than the ER5 and the R6 in some regards. Not for hybrid shooters, but for mostly for video, it's definitely better than the Canon R5 and the R6. So that's really great. Now, Nikon is scheduled to release the Z6S. We still don't know how that camera is going to shape up to this one. I don't think it's going to be better than this one. I don't even think it's going to have on-the-move recording. So if it doesn't have on-the-move recording, then it's going to be pretty much an arrival. But for the time being, this is really the camera to beat when it comes to video, to strictly video. The S1H still offers more video features, but the autofocus is not really that great. So for those people that really need the autofocus, this is going to be the best camera for video at the moment right now. So big props to Sony for coming out with this camera. Finally, about time. Like I said in the beginning, this camera should have come out in 2018, but we finally get this camera, so that's pretty great. And so yeah, I mean, the A7s III is pretty great camera for video shooters, but not really that great for hybrids, like I said. So yeah, guys, that was pretty much my opinions on this camera, my reaction to it. Overall, it's a pretty great camera for video, like I said, but it's not really for me because it's not really appealing for hybrid shooters because of the lower resolution sensor. I will still be waiting for the A7 IV. If the A7 IV can come up with most of the things that this camera has, I'm going to be pretty happy. So I'm going to be waiting on that. And so yeah, thank you guys for watching the video. If you like my work, and want to support me, be sure to hit the subscribe channel and visit the channel if you want to see more camera related videos and event videos. I have recently released a video talking about the current pandemic situation here in Portugal and events getting delayed, like Ibrahim, for example, and getting cancelled. So for the time being, I will not come out with any Japanese culture events or gaming events because of the current pandemic going on in the world. But if I have the opportunity to come out with new event videos like the Dolphin Bay trip, for example, I will. But starting in this month of August, I will start coming up with gaming videos, so be sure on the lookout for that. And once again, thank you guys for watching the video, and I see you guys in the next one. Stay safe out there, and UNHOLY-OMEGA signing out. Have a good one. And Sony, once again, big props. The A7s III is really great for video. Not as great for hybrids, but then again, the A7 IV is going to be releasing, so please Sony, do not cripple the A7 IV. Please.